So good evening, everybody. Good morning to those in Canada. Welcome to our BHER Speaker Series event. I'm going to make the land acknowledgement for those of us who are situated in Canada, and then go ahead and introduce Esther, who's going to moderate our event today. So we recognize that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located that precede the establishment of York University. York acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Toronto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. So my name is Rachel Silver, and I'm coming to you from York University in Toronto, but I have the great pleasure of introducing Esther Munene, who will be moderating the event today. Esther Munene is the Borderless Higher Education for Refugees Academic Programs Officer located in or based from Dadaab, Kenya. She's worked for Windle International Kenya, served on the Dadaab Refugee Secondary Education Program, and also worked as a teacher and secondary school deputy principal in Ifo Refugee Camp in Dadaab. And without Esther, BHER programs would not run as they do. So she's just absolutely crucial for the work that we do. And it is a great pleasure to turn it over to you now, Esther.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Welcome everyone to today's meeting. Our topic is Together for Peace in Somalia. We will have a short film screening, and then we will discuss, and we have our panelists, Hawa Sabri, who works with the United Nations Office for the coordination of human affairs in Mogadishu, Somalia, as a humanitarian affairs officer. She studied in York University in Canada, but is currently working in Somalia. We also have Jama Mohammed. He was once a student. He's an alumni of the BHER. He's currently working in Somalia as well. He will tell us a little more about what he does and, share a little bit about his experiences later on. So I would like us to briefly, not briefly, but go ahead and have the screening. It's about the rebuilding of Somalia and the peace and situation in Somalia, because the international community or the media portrays Somalia as a war-torn country, and rebuilding efforts being very difficult. But Somalia of late has been coming up, and there have been returnees and refugees from Kenya who have also been repatriating to Somalia and helping in the rebuilding of their country. So we'll be discussing that and hearing from Hawa and Mohammed Jama about what it's like. They will share with us their personal experiences, and I believe that we'll have some time to also contribute to the discussion and ask them some questions. So I will request that we screen the film so that we can move on to the next part.
markii la isbarbar dhigo waqti xaadirkan liida sida quruxda badan iyo nabadda ay dadku ugu raaxaysanayaan qiyaasta waxaa xasuustaa waagii aan carruurta halkan mar walba waxaa jiri jiray dhibaato
subax walba markaa shaqada soo aado oo arko shacabka oo si nabad ah ku soo toosay oo ardayda iskuulada u socoto farxadan la qiyaasi karnaa dareemaa aad iyo aad very proud
nabad inay wax weyn tahay aan heestaan ku sameyn markaan sameynin raadi muqdisho aan ku duubnay markuu horeysay raadi muqdisho markaan ku duubnay kadib ay Jabuuti la aadnay marka nabadaan naadin riwaayadana oo sahal macliis markii xaaji banaadir iyo Somali iyo fanaanin badan riwaayad aan dhignay oo Jabuuti aan ku duubnay hadda markii heesta la sameynaa iyo hadda isku jawi mana heesta waxaan ku sameynay markaas hataa guri lagama soo bixi jiray maantana saacaddaa rabtaa soconay يعني ترتيب ترتيبه إن شاء الله.
فرحات aad u weyn way noo tahay waa idin baraarujinayaa waa idin dhiirigelinayaa walaalahayga tihiin garbahayga tihiin maanta haday wax soo gaaraan dadka oo macnaha isoo garb istaagi lahaa ama dhiigi iyo shubi lahaa idinka waaye in macnaha wadanka meesha u socdo meel kasi sareysa si gaarsiino magacaygu waa Samiir Nuurdin Nazaar 23 jir ahay waxaan ka imaaday dalka Norway soo barbaaray haddana waxaa ka tirsanaa ciidanka booliiska Soomaaliyeed weliga waa jeclaan ciidanka inaan ku biiro oo yacni ciidan noqdo qof askari ah oo shaqeysa markaas darees wadato waagaan yaraa markaas xataa laakiin maslihin Soomaaliya inta ciidanka Soomaaliyeed ku biiraysaa marka dareeska xirto waxaa dareemaa mas'uuliyad weyn waxaa dareemaa awood iyo dhiiranaan iyo sharaf wax walba marka shaqada soo aado oo arko shacabka oo si nabad ah ku soo toosay oo ardayda iskuulada u socoto suuqa furan yahay gawaarida iyo ganacsiga si nidaam ah u socdaan farxadan la qiyaasi karnaa dareemaa qaban karaan dumarka wax walba waa qaban karaan dhagax xalqaadaada ahaaleed iyo dabaq la jibinaada ahaaleed iyo mid la dhisaada ahaaleed iyo qori la qaadaada ahaaleed laf dhabarka wadankaaniitin waa dumarka tirada waa soo ziyaadaysaa oo ciidanka booliska dumarka ah xataa aan dhahno sektarada oo yacni security-ga ah iyo xataa shaqaalaha dowladda markaas dhalinyarada oo shacabka Soomaaliyeed ay arkaan markaas inaa shaqeynayo oo darees aawato way weydiiyaan qaabka ay u soo biir lahaayeen ciidanka iyo yacni wadada ay mari lahaayeen anna waxaan ka caawin karo waa ka caawiyaa markaas inay waajib saaran waayo magacaygu waa Qowla Maxamed waxaan ku dhashay magaalada Baydhabo maadaama dalka dagaalo sokeeyo badan oo soo maray waxaan chance u helay inaan wadanka Kenya wax barasho aan u aado wadanka waxaan ku soo laabtay 2018kii markaan arkay dhibaatooyinka bulshadeena haysato qaasatan haweenka markaan dalka ku soo laabtay waxaan raadiyay shaqooyin oo aan ugu howlgalo dhibaatooyinka dalka ka jira aan ka geysta doorkeygii alxamdulillah waxaan helay shaqadan xarunta xalinta khilaafaadka ee magaalada Baydhabo oo aan hadda shaqo badan uga hayo bulshadayda halkan ka howlgala xarunta xalinta khilaafaadka ee BHER-ka hadda aan shaqada galayno iga fur xarunta waxay qabataa waxa lagu xalliyaa khilaafyada iyo muranka ka dhaca bulshada degan magaalada Baydhabo assalaamu calaykum warama caalami waxaa ka shaqeeya ilaa 33 oday oo kasoo kala jeeda qabiilaha degan magaalada Baydhabo iyo 30 habeena oo ayagana kasoo jeeda xaafadaha magaalada ay leedahay 10 xaafadood maanta ay kiisas badan aan oo yaalo oo ay ka mid tahay kiiska hadda aan ka hadlaynay ee haweeneyda jirdilka loo geystay iyo 2 kiis oo kale oo aan hadda receive gareynay warbixinteeda wili aan haynin oo warbixinteeda aan raadin rabno hadda dhibaatooyinka haweenka Soomaaliyeed haysta way fara badan yihiin haweenka Soomaaliyeed tacadiya lagu sameeyaa waa la kubsadaa jirdil lagu sameeyaa bulshadeeda faquuqdo dadkeeda faquuqo khaasatan familkeedii gabadha markay gaarto heerkii waxbarashada waxaa lagu yiraahdaa guriga joog gabadhii nasiibka saaciday wax soo baratay oo rabtay in dadkeeda wax u qabata ayadan waxaa lagu yiraahdaa hadalooyin niyad u keeni kara يعني نومة تدنيسيد وحنا وما قبل كرتد أو كقص باي إني كتنازل شو ريوين كي رجل إله وحاربنا إن ورئيس أن لا يلنا أن بارز أن قسمينا إني وحكة جيران أوجانو إن عبرشة قبل أي شيء جنيسة مركب كله وحنا ورئيسنا إن قبل هو يدت إيو إن قف درس كذا حروم أو ولا جرح حروم وخلافين حل وشقيان caqabadooyin fara badan aad iska jiray bilowgii markaan shaqada aan bilaabay tusaale wax oo tixgelina kama heli jirin bulshadeeda iyo dadka aan la shaqeeyo sida inay sidii dumar ahaan ay iyasaan oo la igu yiraahdo hadalooyin waxba ma qaban kartid laakiin alxamdulillah mowqifkayga waa ku adkaystay heer waxay gaareen in ay igu kalsoonaadaan oo ay fursad siiyaan haweenka anigoo kala aan hoosh aniga ahay maanta ay la qabtaan ay xarunta ay ka tirsan yihiin ay xaliyaan kiisaska
waxaa ka shaqeysa ilaa 106 qof oo volunteer ah oo kala jooga gobolada dalka waxyaabaha clean up aan waxaa ka mid ah sida xeebaha oo kale inaan xeebihi tagno bulshada ku wacyigelin xeebihi nadiifiyaan oo kale barnaamijka dugsiyada cagaaran barnaamijkaas wuxuu ka kooban yahay in ardayda dugsiyada dhigato la baro wax loo yaqaano environmental lessons ama casharada deegaanka la xiriira sida ay deegaanku ilaalin lahaayeen sida dhirta u beeri lahaayeen iskuullada dhiraynaya aan ka sameynaa sidoo kale ardayda waxaan barnaa sidii ay dhirtaas ay u ilaasho lahaayeen oo kale waxaan sameynay dhirbeeris ka sameynay magaalada Muqdisho meelo kala duwan sida masaajidada iyo isbitaalada oo kaleeto tirada dadweynaha caasimadda ayaa sii kordhaysay muddooyinkii ugu dambeeyay sanadahan maadaama amnigu soo hagaagayay Muqdisho waxay noqonaysaa mid ka mid ah magaalooyinka ugu koriimaha badan ee dunida marka dadka oo bato waxay saameyn ku yeelanayaan deegaanka sida aad aragtaan halkan qashinkan aad faraha badan waxa keenay dadku waxay u baahan yihiin in la siiyo wacyigelin joogto ah kama nooga ducaadee dalka noogu soo noqo fiiri quruxdan iyo damaashaadkan haddii aan isku tagno oo aan ka shaqeyno nabadeena waxaan si wanaagsan ugu raaxaysan karnaa
dhulkeena barwaaqada taalo iyo nimcada taalo xeebta dadweynaha ama public beach waa xeebta liido marka bulsho aad u fara badana jimco walba iyo waqtiyada firaaqada ay leeyihiin u imaadaan inay ku dalxiisaan haba ugu badnaato maalinta jimcada iyo khamiista iyo xilliyada habeenkii marka dadka ay shaqada inta ku caajisaan ama habeenkii ay soo doontaan inay ku socdaan oo waqti ay ku qaataan anaga marka waxyaabaha aan aadka ugu faa'iideysan karno waxaa ka mid ah xeebaha quruxda badan ee dalkeena aynu kala duwan sida xeebta eyl oo kaleeto ah meel aad u qurux badan oo nadiif ah dadkan ay ku dalxiisi karaan
qofku waa noogayaa dibadda moogtahay waayo qofku wuxuu jecel yahay dalkayga waanu jeclayn moogtahay marka waxa ay keenay aniga nin saaxiibkee maxamed xasan gacmo dheere la dhaho ayaa waxaanu goosannay inaanu dalkii dib ugu noqonno oo waayo aragnimadaanu ka dhaxalnay macallinnimada tan yurub iyo tan maraykankaba inaanu dalkeenna iyo carruurteenna ugu deeqno fikradaydu waxay ahayd markii meel qorayaashu ay wax ku qoraan oo ku nastaan oo maaragtay xeeb ah oo maaragtay ay ku socon karaan oo buuq aan lahayn oo maaragtay ayaan taladu ahayd nasiib darro dadka iyaga dibadda jooga waxay noqdeen victim TV-ga waxay ka arkaan marka maalin kasta waxaa la tusaa dagaal iyo balaayo iyo jab iyo dhac iyo marka taasay fikradda ku haystaan laakiin reality on the ground yacni runtu waa wax kale weeye markay dibadda ka yimaadaan oo ay arkaan dhulku suu nabad u yahay dalkiisuu u wanaagsan yahay dhadhankii urkii u soo noqday dalkooda waxa weeye waa markaasay ku farxaan geedaha ugu fac weyn waxa weeye berdaa la dhahaa actually Soomaaliya waa ka soo dhamaaday war ma aha dhaqaale inaad la timaado dalkaaga waxaad la timaadaa yacni karti badan oo aadan ogeyn inaad leedahay ayaa jirta waa idea adduun baad soo aragtay ma garatay la imow ideaha wuxuu yahay hanti ah hadda dadka ii yimaado ilaa iyo xamar meel kasta ka yimaado ilaa iyo maaragtay boosaaso hargeysa yacni markuu qofku yimaado dalxiiska dadkii halkan ku dhaqnaa hadday kobshaa ka cabaan waa faa'iida waayo
riyadeyda waxay tahay in aan hawsha aan haayo aan meesheeda kasii wado aan ballaariyo aan habeen badan aan u noqdo dhiirigelin
haddii aan ka shaqeyno oo aan isku tagno aan ka shaqeyno nabadda waxaa waaye waxaa noo hagaagaya waddanka si qurux badan ugu raaxaysan karnaa
riyadeyda waxaa waa in meelaha ugu sareeyo inaan ka gaaro dhanka amniga dalka in darajadeeda ii ziyaado generaal ay gaaro insha allah hadda laba xidig la ahay koowna shakada ma aha laakiin waa la gaaraa insha allah
Soomaaliya waxa weeye at the end of the tunnel waxaa ka muuqda iftiin ayo ifayay leedahay moogtahay
warigayga taas waaye niyadeyda waxaa waaye dadka inaan baraarujiyo wax u sheego inaan dadkayga wax u sheego nabaddaan u sheego kii aniga iga yar kii kaleba inaan nabadda u sheego oo yacni aan baraarujiyo aadan ugu kalsoonahay oo nabad aan ku wada dhaqanno
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much, Sherry. That film, I think, shows a different face of Somalia from what we are used to seeing on maybe on TV and other forms of media. And so this brings us to our today's discussion about, rebuilding Somalia and, hearing wonderful experiences from Hawa and from Jama. And just to mention that the film is by Dirad Films, a Somali diasporic group of filmmakers. So it's a wonderful project there that they came together to do. So I will invite Jama to briefly talk about himself and tell us what he does. Jama?
Thank you very much, everybody. I'm very happy now to join such brilliant meeting today. I'm very happy to see maybe previous faces like Hawa. How I can see her maybe her face. I'm very happy to see them. I'm very glad to see them also. Thank you very much, Madam, for your invitations. And now, really, I'm Jama Ahmed Mohammed, aged that 6 years old, Somali by nationality. Really, I came to the refugee camps in 1991 and finished my tertiary educations from the BHER program. I have work and vested experience in the implementation of the education sector when I was in the refugee camps, especially in the DAP camps in Hagadera. I was in Kenya for 27 years, and I am in Somalia, Spain for 4 years, since from 2018. Now, so I came to the refugee camps in quality. I have worked now different sectors, especially now when I was in the refugee camps. I've worked for I worked at the refugee camps as the quality education assistant officer. For the last position where I left was that I am motivated during to my vast experience living in the refugee camps where the security situations can be very volatile. I'm confident that I'm provisionally exposed and well enabled. I assist in the now collection and verification of the stability informations to the organizations whom I work for. And as I head teacher, those positions I have held, I head teacher, education assistant officer, and I was able to document and share now the collected, analyzing, and verified the data collected, especially in the refugee camps when I was in the DAP. I have worked the refugee camps for the different agencies with the different positions in order to maintain and manage now a positive and respected public image of all regional acts. I'm a person of integrity where I have worked and I have always now safeguarded and managed the positive and respected in public image where I have worked different across now all the organizations I have worked. I have worked with the different field in education sector, and I was responsible for the signing, planning, organizing, implementation, monitoring, and coordination of education in emergency program in the entire management, as well as to provide technical expert in integrations with the sustainable education programs, including resilient programs with the especially emphasize on the achieving now a long-term community resilient in education. In addition to that, I was a focal point persons for the monitoring and for Girl Guide education when I was in the DAB as well as also in Somalia. For developing now for education emergency programs, students performing also both now in Kenya and Somalia. By now, previously I was an education manager responsible for arranging work with a public schools, district and large colleges in my homeland and region, especially in Garowe. My organizational skills and ability to communicate with a large group helped me to find success on a daily basis, and I was also utilized my strong belief in teamwork to enhance my result and make a strong bond with the community and education system in the ministry as well as the university here now in Eroe. I have also adhered now to lay down also the policy and procedures. I feel confident now 27 years of being a refugee of a solid experience in the education sector, especially in Somalia and Kenya. My experience working with the cross-functions international team who taught me the importance of building trust relationship and inspire a shared mission and vision in my homeland. I can bring and build Somali education to really well experience in developing successful education development, communicating expectation clearly, and encourage now Somali youth team and Station also, and I was among also those students who got now as a privilege in BHER student in the refugee camps who had also completed his tertiary educations. And additional to this, I was among also the focal point head teacher who used to advocate girls' educations in the project of WTK, whereby Madam Esther currently works. I have worked with the Ministry of Education here now in Somalia, especially in Qardo, as a school manager, and I am a father of six kids, 3 boys and 2 girls. Still, my family is in the refugee camps, whereby I am the breadwinner of my family because I have not relocated my family up to now. They are still in the refugee camps, whom they are waiting me. And currently, what I'm doing, I'm currently working with the Woodland University State in Gro as English language lecturer teacher, as well as also academic chairperson for the English department in BSU, that is Woodland and State University. I established primary and secondary school in Jubaland, especially in Kismayo and in Kudar region, in Kuda locations under the district of Badade in Jujuba, Land State, of which is currently operating. And I, Jama, work in Somalia to look for sustainable life for my family, of which the situations in Somalia currently is men's. It's not stable. And the violet of not yet now stable since maybe the information starts from 1991 up to now, the situation of Somalia is messing up. It's not in the durable solution.
Okay, Jama, allow me to interrupt you just for a bit. Thank you so much for sharing about yourself and for sharing, about what you're doing right now in Garowe. I think allow me to go ahead and ask, because you mentioned that you had been a Somali refugee in the Dadaab refugee camps. So allow me to ask, what motivated you to repatriating to Somalia?
Yes, that is true. That's good questions, madam. Thank you very much. The reason so now why I have repatriated I alone, because I told you that my family is still they ended up refugee camps, yet I have not repatriated them, but I alone, Jama, left the refugee camps because of looking for green pastures for sustainable life, which can now sustain my life in to get for better job. After I finish now my BHER education programs, of which maybe I have been a refugee again now in the refugee camps, I have decided myself to join and look for better job in Somalia.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you, Jama. Maybe you could talk to us about the myth on repatriation among the Somali refugees, because you have been in the camps. What are some of the myths about repatriation that exist in the refugee camps?
Yeah, really now the myth that the refugees they have now, and because of there are many myths, but we have said first they said insecurity. That was one thing. Now they have said the security situation in Somalia has not yet has not yet improved, and therefore the fear to return to Somalia, of which is their homeland, is still hanging. Second issue is now about the basic need. they fear that now they cannot get an access basic education facility, which is very weak and unable to provide the required service access. Like, for example, shelter is also a major problem in Somalia, and water, as well as also the education. Nearly all the returnees, and they say that they had been unable to secure adequate and basic needs in Somalia. And the many of the maybe the refugees, they fear also not to get also the basic need that they can have get and access maybe in the refugee camps. They can also face persecution and retaliation from also the previous clan whom they have now discredited. The other fear or myth that they have is like, for example, discriminations now in terms of our jobs and the other scarcity economic opportunities from the country now. Some of them, they fear that now Somalia is not still and stable, and they may fear that now explosion may take place during while they are in Somalia. That was some of the myths they have. They have that concept.
Okay. Thank you, Jama. I think it's interesting to learn about these myths that exist in the refugee camps about Somalia, and it's also interesting to have you here with us to share your experience on what it is like being back in Somalia as a returning refugee, working there, because now you are a Somali citizen. So in Kenya, you're a Somali refugee, but in Somalia, you are a citizen of the land. So would you please share with us what it's like, being there versus being here as a refugee? What are some of those interesting experiences that you have?
Yeah, really now, when I was in the refugee, like for example, when I was in the refugee, I was not had maybe any fear, but currently when I came back to my homeland, where I was even born as my homeland, I fear because of one fear is that now is insecurity. That we have said, for example, either you fear at what time maybe is explosion happen, or what time maybe you will be killed. For example, if you work maybe in higher position, like for example, or maybe you work for organization, or you work for maybe one of the government especially, you may fear for that. But when you become now resilient, like maybe the other community, and you work maybe in the market, you may not fear. The other fear is that now there's the clan clash among, if maybe your previous clan, one of your clan previous, they torture one of the communities, you may fear that you will be killed one day, one time. That's one fear now. But we have said the returnees, normally the refugees faces a lot of challenge about their returnees. Very many of them now have nowhere to seek and the quality educations, or for example, the shelter or free educations. Because when they have been in the refugee, there's a free education, free water, free shelter, of which the Somali is not existing. The summation we have the summations of all this in the phenomena will give no easy now read for the returnees. Some will Somali who also agreed now to return to Somalia after spending years as a refugee in the refugee camps, who had fled back to Kenya, and second time also because of the ongoing politician and the lack of also the basic service in Somalia is not yet enough for them. And the other issue is some, like for example, some returnees, and when they have been repatriated to Somalia, they decided options now to go back to the camps where they have been, and where they have been living before, because of Somalis when they comes here and they have been away from the country for a long time, yet they cannot get now access or interaction with the community who are in Somalia. That was one fear. Again, they have been discriminated and true of their mother tongue, because in Kenya, especially now in northeastern, people they spoke with a different languages. Well, let me say it maybe, for example, like act or a sound. Some of them especially the challenge I face, Jama, when I have been came to, especially in Garowe. These people now in Garowe, they spoke another language, which is very hard. And when I interact with them now, they say, you are from Somalia, you are from Kenya because of your suju. That's why now they discredited. Again, when they see you that you are very competent and in academically, they say that you have learned from Kenya, but we give them the opportunity, those who have been in Kenya, in Somalia for a long time, of those who maybe they have not fled in Somalia, they have undergone for education in Somalia, they can get maybe and the higher position or maybe higher paid positions they were given those people. Yet they don't have that quality and the educations. Like for example, when you applied for a position, the most challenging me I have accounted during my time, maybe those 4 years in Somalia. I have applied many positions to look for maybe a job, better job. Then the higher positions were also held by an old mean. Those who have been now in Somalia, yet they cannot communicate and write. Maybe in terms of functional writing, they're very poor. In terms of maybe communication, they're very poor. Yet they're holding the positions. And when you applied them, they say you are from Kenya. And Kenyans, they are not maybe given. When you tell them that I'm bona fide Somali nationality, they say your certificate is from maybe York University or from Kenya or any other places. So the better position will be given those who have been in Somalia for a long time, since now the civil war was ongoing. Those was some of the issues now. That's the things. Then the other issue that the returnees, when they back to, again now to Somalia, they cannot get enough consideration. Yes, they cannot get enough considerations because of they were given, for example, maybe a shelter or a position or a land or a portion of a land, yet they can't get maybe a money to construct a shelter. There is no also quality in the water in Somalia. The water is salt. The water is salt. None of maybe human cannot just take it. That's one thing. And then 1 liter of water equivalent for, let me say it now, $5 of water now. The pure and the clean water that you want maybe have access to drink is qualified of very high, the amount of money. Yet the refugees, those who have been repatriated back to Somalia, they cannot get it. The other issue also I have wondered and I counted is that now in the, for example, in education sectors, especially for the schools, you will see that now the curriculum is not same. Like for example, in Mogadishu now, the capital city, the federal government, they are dealing with especially curriculum. And here now, where I am currently in Woodland, they deal with the separate curriculum again, as well as the other federal region states, of which is not uniform. Again, these people now in the regional states, like resident in regional states, they have that element to get the certificate of primary education or secondary education from the government. Yet they don't again to undercome to the federal government. That was one challenge again, whereby maybe you will see that now the curriculum of Ethiopia is going on. The curriculum of going is in the maybe Kenya is it has been also established here is going on. Yet schools they have nowhere to move.
Okay.
Of which again the fees of and of the schools, especially now primary school where I am currently here in Garowe, is a very expensive. Each child now for fees of the child is $20. Which of maybe the refugees they cannot access. The opportunity we used to get maybe in the Dadaab refugee camps was very, very, very good really when I compare to the life of Somalia. We don't know currently where Somalia is going on and where it may come from really. That was one thing that has disappointed me.
Okay. Thank you, Jama. Thank you for sharing those experiences. They shed a lot of light on what we have been seeing and what the situation is like on the ground. Good to see you and good to have you here. Would you kindly tell us a little bit about yourself? Yes, Hawa, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Esther. And thank you, Jama. Jama and I actually connected last night for the first time in like 5 years. I had no idea he was in Somalia and I'm in Somalia, so that was very surprising. Just a little bit about me. I guess my name is Hawa Sabri. I was born and raised in Toronto to obviously a Somali family. I currently now live in Mogadishu, and I work for the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs as a humanitarian affairs officer. So essentially, I'm responsible for collaborating with a group of humanitarian organizations, both UN and non-UN agencies, to essentially mobilize and coordinate effective humanitarian action across Somalia. I think Esther introduced me saying that I graduated from York University's Masters of Education program. That's where I got involved with the BHER project, and I did my undergraduate studies at the University of Toronto. Is there anything else I should add?
Thank you, Hawa. That's great. I think I'm a bit interested in knowing because you were born and educated in Canada. What inspired you to return to Somalia?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that there wasn't one key thing that inspired me to, I guess, move to Somalia. I like to tell people that Don Dippo is the reason why I am here in Mogadishu. If I hadn't met him and got involved with the BHER project and found out about Dadaab, I don't think I could have ever imagined myself being here. Becoming a teaching assistant for the BHER project brought me to Dadaab, which is the closest I've ever been to Somalia. And in April 2017, after one of my TA trips, I had just celebrated my 26th birthday in Dadaab, and I decided to go to Mogadishu for the first time because my mother had just moved there to deal with land issues and said she was going to be coming back to Canada, but ended up deciding to officially move and retire and live in Somalia now. So, I mean, really what brought me here, I think, was, or what inspired me to move here was meeting the students in Dadaab and working with them in their journey of gaining a higher education and the discussions about like, we're gonna go back home, which is not something that I could relate to because the only home that I knew was Toronto, was Canada. So consistently hearing that over like the 2-year period that I worked with the BHER students, I also wanted to have that connection of home. Because at the end of the day, yes, I'm Canadian, but I'm also Somali. So after my 2-week trip in 2017, it gave me the opportunity to see Somalia and also kind of envision myself there. And my experience is very different from what is portrayed in the media. And that was also in the clip of the little short film that you showed. You know, it was 2 weeks of me meeting family members that I didn't know existed, visiting my grandmother's old home, seeing, you know, the neighborhood my parents grew up in, meeting my father's only 2 surviving siblings. And yeah, just seeing the beauty of Mogadishu. And I made a promise to my mother that I would consider moving to Somalia. I'd give it a shot. So I moved here in 2019 after I finished a contract that I had in Mozambique. And now it's just over 3 years. And I've had 2 jobs here. I've met so many BHER students that I met in Dadaab that are now here in Mogadishu, and they welcomed me and made me feel really at home here. So I think that's just a little bit about what inspired me to come to Somalia.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's interesting to hear that, you know, our students inspired you to move back to Somalia and see what it's like. So thank you very much for that. I think I would also like to know, is there a returnees community in Somalia of people like yourself who have been abroad and they have returned to Somalia?
Yes, yes. There's so many diasporas. Sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's like two different types of people that are returning, right? So there's the people that have left, like my parents. So just a little bit of background, my parents moved to Canada in 1986, so before the Civil War. And then when the Civil War broke out, they sponsored their siblings. And so Canada was the only life that I knew. And my parents and I were doing the math, like they had spent more of their years or like years of their lives in Canada than actually in Somalia. So there's a group of people that are like my parents that they left Somalia, whether it was because of the conflict or, well, no, mostly because of the conflict. And then there are people like me, like who have never, traveled to Somalia, ever imagined them seeing themselves in the country. So when I think about the group of people like my parents, looking at those types of diaspora, and then again, also Jama looking at former refugees, you can see them in all walks of life here. They have started businesses, they teach in universities. A lot of them work within the humanitarian sector all across the country. And when I connect with them, they have such a different experience in terms of homecoming. This is being able to come back to the land that they grew up in, and they see possibilities and new dreams. After seeing what life is like outside of Somalia, I think it's a very nice welcome back for them. And then, I mean, I can only speak about my own experience as a diaspora who was born and grew up outside of the country. For me, the community, yes, I can spot a diaspora who was raised outside just by the way we walk, the way we talk. But I think for us, depending on how much family you have in Somalia, it could be quite a challenging transition. So for me, building a community as someone who was not born here and didn't have any real sense of connection with Somalia was really difficult at first. And any BHER student on this call, Jama, definitely, I know Hayun also, my Somali skills were terrible. They were like the level of like a kindergarten student. I would say now, after 3 years, I would like to think if I'm in middle school. I don't think I've excelled completely, but there were challenges in languages. Even like finding a job, like Jama said, people would look at my CV. And because I was so determined to work as a Somali, I wasn't coming to Somalia to work as a Canadian. I was coming here to work as a Somali, which is very different. So if I was going to work as a Canadian, I would not be allowed outside of a compound. So I was applying to all these jobs as a Somali. I just got my passport. And for diaspora that have, grown up and educated outside, it's very challenging because there's a lot of pushback. And sometimes people think you're stealing opportunities from locals here. There's lots of different cultural contexts that I had to navigate, making friends. It took me like a lot of time to really find my place here, but there are other diasporas that I have leaned on, and also, of course, my BHER students that have really helped me integrate into the culture, my family that I didn't know about, the language. And so I think there's different types of returnee communities, but we all have something in common. And I think we're all back here for a reason, or coming here for the first time for a reason, to really find that sense of home, if that makes sense. Sorry, I just finished a really long day at work. I'm actually still at the office, so I'm a bit tired, but I hope that made sense.
Yes, it does make a lot of sense. So thank you very much, Hawa. And I think
to add on,
ask Jama, just allow me. We will have a moment for feedback. So you'll be able to ask Hawa questions a little bit later. Hawa, I think I would really appreciate it if you would tell us where you feel is home between Canada and Somalia. Where do you currently feel is home for you?
When I think about where do I feel at home, that's a very challenging question, because I think for the longest time I couldn't really pinpoint where is home, because I felt like in Canada I wasn't Canadian enough. In Somalia I definitely wasn't Somali enough. So right now I think that home for me is where I have a sense of community, a sense of belonging. When I mentioned that when I first moved to Somalia, I didn't really feel comfortable. I didn't know the names of streets and neighborhoods. I didn't know anything about politics, and people here love politics. But for me, I think this sense of home, and I saw this, in my discussions with BHER students, it's where I have this sense of community, where I have people that I love, and I think that home can be in multiple places. So I think I'm always going to consider Toronto home, but I'm probably never going to live there again. I think that I've got this itch to try to build a life here in Somalia. And now that my parents definitely call Somalia home. They don't even think about Toronto anymore. And for me, home is where my parents are. Okay, I've given you multiple definitions of home, but yeah, just like a sense of belonging and a sense of community. And I think when I think about the BHER students in Dadaab not feeling welcomed, like it's a protracted situation, it's not permanent. And I think when I think about home, like even though Mogadishu has been such a difficult transition, it is home because I truly belong here. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Thank you very much, Hawa. I think I would like to ask Jama the same question. Jama, where do you feel is home more? Is it in Somalia, Garowe, or is it in Dadaab, where you have grown up for most of your life? Jama, you're muted. Please unmute.
Yeah. I'm hearing you. Thank you very much. And really, where I grew up and educated myself, it was in the Dadaab refugee camps. But when it comes in the way to feel as home, it is where my nationality and identity now is. Like for example, and currently I'm in my homeland, where maybe the refugees before, when I was in the refugees, I've been as a refugee, and maybe have no identity and maybe excess movement in Kenya, whereby currently I can just move across 18 regions in Somalia without any identifications or any maybe asking questions. But currently where I feel my home is Somalia now. And especially Garowe, it is one of in the state region in Somalia, but where normally I born and when I was very young, maybe in Jubaland, especially in Kismaya, where that I organized a school in Kuda. That's where I feel as a home. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Jama. That's amazing to know. I think I would also just want to give each of you, Hawa and Jama, 2 minutes or three to tell us what do you think about, the role of women in rebuilding Somalia? Because when we were watching the film by Dirad films, we saw, the role of women in social work, in conflict resolution, and such like. Also there was the lady who, wanted to become a policeman or a policewoman, and she made it, and she's very ambitious, and she wants to, go up the ladder and become even more. What do you think is the space for women, the place of women in Somalia, in its rebuilding? I will start with Hawa and then Jama. So Hawa goes first.
Okay, great. That's a really good question. I think that when I think about the role of women, when we look at the narrative of Somali women, we are oppressed. We are one of four wives, maybe. We have multiple children. A lot of us are not employed. This is the narrative, but I think that being here in Mogadishu, and I feel like I can summarize it in three aspects, like looking at the political space for women. So I mentioned right now I work in humanitarian affairs, so one of my jobs is coordinating with the government. And right now there's this push of greater inclusion of women in the country's political arena, right? We're urging leaders to safeguard at least 30%, which I know sounds really low, but that's quite high for Somalia, of having women leaders in the government right now. So I think that in terms of politics, women are leading the way. They're working really hard to support the government. Through OCHA, I work really closely with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, and the ministry for that is a woman named Khadija Mohammed Diri. And right now Somalia is experiencing a drought, and she is so strong in terms of bringing all the ministries together from all the different states. And so from a political standpoint, I think women are there, they are seen, they are making their way into the political arena. And then looking at the humanitarian aspect, because that's where I'm working in, a lot of UN agencies right now and NGO agencies, they're always encouraging women to apply for their positions. It's like a line that's always at the bottom of their applications. And so, and of course, I'm also pushing so many female BHER students to get into the humanitarian space, because that's where we can be loud. That's where we can make a lot of noise in terms of when it comes to gender-based violence, and really supporting women all across the country in Somalia, so they can be really like active actors in terms of rebuilding the country. And then lastly, looking at the economic space, I think that there's so many opportunities for women here in terms of entrepreneurship training and mentorship programs that exist to really equip Somali women with the mindsets, the skills, and the tools that they need to start building their own businesses. I feel like I've had so many ideas for my own businesses that I never had in Canada. And so I think there's a ton of growing evidence that shows that there's, positive outcomes for Somali women's economic empowerment. But that doesn't necessarily mean, I don't want to like sugarcoat it. It doesn't mean that Somali women have the economic empowerment. It's essentially, when I think about rebuilding Somalia, if we were to empower Somali women to break these barriers and enter the economic space, political space, humanitarian space, even the education sector, that's when we can really start to see the growth in a better, brighter Somalia. So I think there's a lot of hope, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done when it comes to gender equality and really inclusively involving Somali women. So yeah, Jama, what do you think?
And really now, yeah, Hawa, she has mentioned a lot. Thank you very much, Hawa. And when I come for the women participations, maybe in Somalia, women also, they participate equally, partners working for peace and the political process in Somalia. Some of the women even they lead us towards the security, stability, and the sustainable development for across all the country now. But when it comes now for economically, and women's is a bit behind because of means are the ones who maybe deal with economically, but normally and the women's they work when it comes for the standards of the livelihood side. Women they work for stability of the how and the home development, especially, and the women's normally they cater even they are the ones who paid for the school fee for their children, whereby mean they always involve for political and excess, of which maybe they have just about the excess of the political. And the other issue, and even right now, you can see that when we were watching the film, even some of the ladies were participating about the security stability of maybe developing about the peace in the country. But women's and always they have equal right, and to what is also the country they are same. But when it comes also for the political, they cannot have access. Normally, they are being denied, and this caused by the culture of Somalia. They have been segregated now to lay down behind. But when it comes now, especially now for humanitarian, then the agencies normally they encourage women to be employed, and normally they give in the opportunity so that they work now maybe especially now for the international NGOs and also the UNHCR. For example, where I am currently in Gero, most of the workers of humanitarians are female, and normally they are being given now considerations. But what happened? Our old fathers, they don't even women to move out from the house or to participate maybe with the community, the activities of which normally they were given now segregations. That was one thing factor that caused by the hinders, that caused by the culture now. The culture was most issues that normally and women's led drive them back to also not to participate. The most is the culture now.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jama, and Hawa for that wonderful session of telling us in rebuilding Somalia. It's good to know where women are engaged and where there are gaps, so that because we have female students who are desirous of returning to Somalia to help in the rebuilding of the nation. So that will really be of help even to us, to provide all of that information. I think I would like to also know the state of education in Somalia, because BHER has been very instrumental in, educating, providing tertiary education for teachers in the Dadaab refugee camps. And majority, 70% of our learners have been refugees. So I would really want to know, and I'm interested in knowing the state of the education sector in Somalia. You had mentioned earlier, Jama, that there are different kinds of curriculums being implemented in different states. So I would really want to know things like, what is that like for the working sector, and what is it like even hiring teachers, for all of these different kinds of curriculum? What is it like not having one national curriculum? And is the government planning on, um, having one curriculum for the whole of Somalia? These are some of the things I think I would really like to know. So I think I will start with Jama this time, and then Hawa will be next.
Yeah, it's true, Madam. Thank you very much. Really, and in Somalia, they used to have maybe one curriculum. One, it was maybe in the government of Mohammed Siad Barre, but when the civil war now and the break out, then people fled from maybe their country, and they wanted also maybe for and the neighborhood countries now to look for peace. People when they have scattered in different in the countries. After then there were some old mean people who have been now involving for education since now and the during of the government of Mohammed Siad Barre. Those people, they have not and they maybe fled. They remain in the country, and when they remain now in the country, they still maybe holding now the one of the schools, because of when the civil war broke out. Some of the schools, they becomes even the home of the militarism now. After now the federal government has been established back, then those old men who have been in Somalia for the education sector for a long time, they have organized themselves again to reestablish and for the educations. When they have established it now for the educations, they have been now continuing now for the education for the Somali in language now across all the schools. After again the federal government came and for the federal states now. So each state, they have now in the demand to have their own in the education sector. Like for example, where I am currently, and one thing that all across the Somalia they are in common is for only English. English language students were taught in the schools, but across other subjects. Some and the subject they normally over for Arabic, others they offered maybe in Somali, others they offered maybe in the another Somali language, or maybe Arabic, or maybe English. across that. But when the federal government now came, especially now, then the federal government currently for Formaggio, they have united back, especially now in South Somalia, they have one uniform currently in South Somalia, from Mogadishu up to maybe Lower Juba, or maybe from Jubaland state, and then by double all those things, they have established also one curriculum uniform. But when they have been those curriculum now for establishment, and those curriculum currently that South Somali they're using, this brought by some diaspora mean, those who have been gone for education for further and education maybe in other countries, either maybe from maybe Canada or from Kenya or any other places. But when the federal government, they suggest that now they can have one curriculum across all the Somalia, especially Buntland region, they have refused now to attend for that because of Buntland is they claim that now they are the mother of the federal government, of which again now when they have started, they don't even to use and follow the idea of the federal government. That's why now the Buntland region, they have separate curriculum, and again the South Somali, they have separate curriculum, of which again the Buntland, they have demand to get the national certificate from the federal government. All those things now, but these days from 2021 later, the federal government and the Buntland region now, they have sat together and they come upon also one uniform and decision making that maybe this year coming 2022 or 2023, they want to now establish back for the education now. There is some maybe discussions which is going on, and then maybe after these elections now, if maybe the new president has been elected, there will be a new curriculum that they are going to form as a unity now. That is the expectation now we are feeling.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jama. That is amazing. Yes, Hawa.
Thanks, Jama. I think Jama is definitely the expert when it comes to education in Somalia. A small part of the work that I do now is I work with the education cluster, who works with various partners across the country in terms of delivering education projects. But when I look at the state of education in Somalia, you have protracted conflict that's combined with reoccurring droughts, flooding. All of this makes it really difficult, I believe, for Somalia's education system to really flourish to what it could be. And then that coupled with COVID-19, I believe there's about 4.5 million school-aged children in Somalia. And before COVID-19, about 1.5 million children were in school. So once COVID-19 hit and all the schools across the country were shut down, you're left with over 3 million middle school aged children that are out of school. So when it comes to the state of education in Somalia, I think you're looking at what the role of schooling is in rebuilding Somalia. I think about the BHER project. I think about the BHER project started as
Hawa Mohammed Ali, please mute your mic. Hawa Mohammed Ali, please mute your mic. Thank you.
Was I muted the whole time, or could you hear me?
No, just a small portion of what you were saying.
Okay, great. So yeah, I was just saying that how COVID-19 has really impacted the education system in Somalia. But we're looking at, what does the role of schooling have when it comes to rebuilding Somalia? I think that we have to start from the basics. So the one thing that I love about the BHER project is that it started as an initiative to train teachers. And I think that's the key for Somalia. Teachers are the key to success, I think, of any education system. So when I think about, the role of schooling in Somalia, what is key is providing teachers with the necessary leadership skills and knowledge to really improve the quality and also the learning outcomes of students across the country. And also being able to provide a safe learning environment in schools across the country, because I said, there's so many different shocks that are being experienced across the country, like flooding and drought and conflict. And Jama touched upon something really important, is also for the government to be able to establish national guidelines, whether it's related to harmonizing curriculum across the country, but also developing guidelines for teacher qualification, certifications, supervision. This way, you really start to develop the quality of education across the country, and I think that's what the role is of education and schooling when it comes to rebuilding Somalia. That's yeah.
Thank you, Hawa. That's
Allow
great.
me, madam, I want to add one issue. Allowed me
Yes.
one point, supplement point for what Hawash has said. Like,
Okay.
for example, the returnees, refugees who have got access training and have gained experience in working with humanitarian aid organizations in the refugee camps, at the same capacity have better chance of securing maybe jobs than those who have not been access the training and education. They have opportunities to integrate in the community with their skills, which enable them also to get the opportunities such as, like, for example, permanent jobs or maybe any other business. Again, those people who have been trained for education, the training, like, for example, in tertiary education, especially in BHER program, are the most valuable students here in Somalia, because they were very few number, but they have been scattered across in all the regions in Somalia, whereby they are the playgrounds. Maybe they have been given for that, and they serve the community in a kind and faithful maybe education that they train. They have established also very, very, very quality educations where they are currently, because they have been trained and they got that opportunity. Yet they are now believing, maybe are nudging maybe a young ones for the quality education. Those are the outstanding people who are maybe dealing for the education in Somalia.
Okay. Thank you, Jama. I think as we come to a close for the panelists, I think I will give each one 1 minute to tell us, in the rebuilding of Somalia, what do you think is working and what do you think is not working? I think I'll start with Jama, just 1 minute, and then Hawa will go for 1 minute. What do you think is working and what do you think is not working? Jama?
Yeah, really, what it can be work now to rebuild Somalia. Somalia wants, they may be that they should be given maybe the quality education, that they train youth as well as those who have maybe undergone for education. They should be trained, that they should get now enough education. That was one thing that will work. The other issue that that Somali maybe cannot work is Somalis also, they cannot be work maybe if Somali were being repatriated. For example, the refugees, if they were given a home, that they should be given also a love and economy, that they can work together. That's those two issues.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Jama.
Jama.
I feel like I can summarize it really short. Like, I think what's really working is the return of diaspora, not to toot my own horn, but I think the more of us that return and we're bringing new knowledge, new skills, also just the desire, not only of diaspora, also refugee returnees, but the desire to really rebuild Somalia with the intention of making this, a better, stronger, and safer country. I think that's working really well. We're bringing new business ideas, new opportunities for the Somalis that didn't leave, and also just in terms of our economy, it's really developing. What I think might need some innovation and maybe just things to change is maybe the humanitarian sector. And I work within the humanitarian sector, but I think what needs to be strengthened is the capacity building of the government institutions that we're supporting, but also the beneficiaries. Instead of doing handouts, what can we do and what can we provide in terms of strengthening communities whether it's at the district level, regional level, in terms of kind of, you know, to be able to provide for themselves, whether it's strengthening the education system, providing more economic opportunities for growth. So I feel like in terms of the humanitarian sector, there could be more innovative ways to how, you know, aid and development is delivered across the country.
Thank you very much, Hawa. I think we are now open for questions and answers. There is a question that was posted earlier on in the chats, and I will go ahead and read it out. So Hawa, this is for you. You've been asked, does Hawa feel the same segregation and experience with Jama, especially while in Somalia, because even her accent betrays her?
I think one thing that I could relate to Jama was definitely when it came to the job search. Like, I didn't find a job right away when I came to Somalia, and I think that, you know, I had mentioned, you know, the idea that some diaspora do come, and especially when we look at the role of the government, a lot of diaspora come and then all of a sudden they're the ministry of, you know, X, Y, and Z, you know, and that's been really challenging for, I know, local Somali citizens who have never left the country to deal with. But in terms of, you know, dealing with any terms of segregation or anything like that, I don't think I've felt it too much now that I'm actually working. A lot of people welcome me, especially, you know, fellow Somali national staff that I work with. And when I engage with, you know, government actors, a lot of them are really happy to see a Somali woman that is actively engaged. So I think there's definitely lots of room for improvement in terms of the inclusion of returnees and also diaspora in terms of the workforce. So it's just, you know, I think being able to get to know the person. So I don't think I experienced too much now, at least.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a question from Aden Samrie. Aden has raised his hand. Aden, please unmute your mic and ask your question. I see that your hand is up. If you have any questions and you don't feel like speaking, you can always type your question in the chats. We have like 10 minutes for question and answer. Samrie?
Hello.
Yes?
Yeah, I would like to ask one question, Hawa and Jama. Before that, I would like to also tell that as you have asked a question about home, where is your home? Is it Somalia or outside? So I could suggest that Hawa and Jama, your home is Somalia, because there is a Somali proverb which says, Dal and Dalkada Hen, Daren Kujok, meaning a country which is not yours, stay with suspicious or alert. I think I could suggest that their home is where their fathers or grandfathers were originated. Come back to the question I have. Before that, my name is Adan Sambria, one of the PA current students at the BHER project, that branch. My question is, I would like to ask them, over 40 students are graduating Faculty of Education, BHER project, that branch this year. What will you encourage us? Will you encourage us to come where you are to work there? Or you can tell us, stay a bit, the situation is not the way it is or the way we thought. That's one of the questions I'm asking Jama and Hawa. I really like Jama and Hawa, how they transform what they learn from the DAP and Canada for our children at home who had experience of getting daily bread through gun. Now instead they want to get their bread through Ben. So I really encourage them. I really like what they're doing, and I encourage them to move ahead. So that's my question and my suggestions.
Okay, thank you, Samrie. Hawa?
Sure, I'll start. I think that what I tell BEHR students that are still in Dadaab and maybe they're completing their studies, they've completed their studies, I say the first thing to do is get a Somali passport. And you don't necessarily have to be in Mogadishu or in a city in Somalia to be applying for jobs. You could do that from Dadaab. But yeah, I would start applying for jobs, whether it's in Mogadishu or Kismayo or a city that you feel very comfortable in, or maybe that you have family in, because the sooner you get here, the sooner you're going to adapt and you're going to feel more at home. Just like Jama, who I'm hopefully going to meet in a few weeks in Getaway. So my suggestion is, as soon as you get that degree, that paper, that certificate, consider yourself a citizen of Somalia. Come back. I'm always happy to support BEHR students when it comes to CV revisions or, looking at the right job. And I know Hayun is planning a workshop for BEHR students in terms of what to look for when it comes to applying for jobs in Somalia or elsewhere. So my suggestion would be to come as soon as you graduate.
Great.
I want to give him answer about Adan Sabri. Thank you very much, Adan Sabri, for your questions. But Adan Sabri really maybe the DAP refugees, youth groups, those who have undergone for treasure education are highly needed in Somalia. That's one question. Because of they are the most outstanding people here in Somalia currently. Because normally in the better places normally work for the refugees, those who have been maybe come from Dadaab or Dagahli or Ifo, those who have undergone for tertiary education currently are the ones who have maybe a resourceful people who can maybe handle for education are those who have now from Kenya. The other issue here in Somalia, there's no free for facilities. Currently, you have free basic needs there in Kenya, especially now in the refugee camps. Currently, I advise you, please, those people inform those who are maybe those who are with you, inform them that now there's no free facilities or basic need in Somalia. Let them maybe try and benefit what they have currently. And when they come back to Somalia, they can get a better positions. And really, you are highly needed.
Yes, thank you, Jama. Is there any other question that I may have missed? Anyone else with a question? All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for being wonderful audience. I see people say, mostly my students saying, thanking Hawa and Jama for being here and for sharing their wonderful experiences. So again, I thank you. We have really learned a lot from you on what it's like being in Somalia. And I believe that this has got us all informed. Yeah. And we have known the gaps that are there. And so if we have ideas to come and support the rebuilding of Somalia, then we have background information, not something from the media, but from people who are on the ground. So thank you so much. I would like to invite my colleague Rachel to give us closing remarks.
Just thank you for coming. I mentioned in the chat that we have our final event for the year on March 16th, and we will share details about that. Thank you to Esther, Hawa, and Jama for such a wonderful event, and hope everyone stays well.
All right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Madam, and I'm grateful for all the interaction we had today. So I'm also saying bye to you, and have a good day. Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Kasaya.